Of the products I'm using on this next design, we're going to create a monster eye over one eye, which is really popular for boys or teen boys and sometimes even dads. I'm going to start off using a sponge. I have a Paint Pal petal sponge, and I'm going to put this right in my water and squeeze out the excess, and then load up this nice bright green. This is Fab Poison Green. And I'm loading my sponge really well. Okay, get lots on there. And then starting over the eyebrow, I'm gonna start sponging on over top of the eyebrow here, creating kind of like a thick brow area where we're gonna do some horns coming up here, right in this kind of area. And I'm going up towards his temple, creating a nice thick brow, coming down across the nose, the bridge of the nose here at a bit of an angle. I got a little on his eyelid, that's okay, we're gonna paint over that later. And then I'm gonna do some on his cheekbone here and then up alongside the temple, mostly on the cheekbone, and then kind of connecting it underneath the eye. Closing it up, kind of making a bit of a half mask sort of shape here. Okay, just blending this out really well until I get the shape that I like for this half eye mask. Once I'm done sponging that on, I'm gonna actually dip my rounded end of the sponge in a darker green color, just on the very edge like this, picking up a little bit of dark green, and I'm gonna just blend this on the edges of our monster eye mask to give it a little bit more depth and give it a bit of more of a 3D effect. Just kind of blending this in really well. Just a little bit up here on the top and then maybe a little on the temple area here, like that. And then with a really large round brush, I'm gonna load this well with some DFX yellow. And this is where we're gonna create our monster eye. Cover the entire eyelid, keeping an almond eye shape for our monster eye. It's really important that the person you're painting keeps their eye closed softly like this the whole time. So if there's a small child who scrunches their eyes, it might not be the best design for them, or you could just skip the eye detail part. Next, I'm gonna load up a number 4 Mark Reed round brush with DFX white. Okay, and this is how we're gonna create our monster horns. And I'm just gonna start kind of at the cheekbone here, going simple thick to thin teardrops, making them long and pointy. I'm doing the large one on the cheek and then a smaller one down here, just kind of under the eye. And then I'm gonna repeat that on the top, on the brow area, kind of coming up this way. Okay, another line coming up and pointing it out. Keeping his eye closed, nice and softly. Just getting that nice long pointed horn shape. And then a smaller one right up here like that. Okay, and then I'm gonna do one smaller one down at the bottom so that there's 2 on top and then 3 on the bottom. Then the next step is gonna be stenciling on some scales. So I'm gonna take my spray bottle and just spritz over the same yellow that we used over the eye. And I'm gonna load up this finger dauber sponge with the yellow, making sure your paint's not too runny. You want it to be kind of a tacky, sticky consistency. You don't want this to bleed underneath your stencil. And then holding your stencil nice and steady, using your fingers like this. And just wherever there's a lot of green space, like open space, I'm gonna stencil these scales over the void areas like this. I like to do the bigger size scales on the outside, and then kind of as I move in towards the center or the inner corner of the eye, I like to make them the scales a little bit smaller, just to give it a little bit of variation. So some of the bigger scales on the outside here on the cheekbone area. Okay, holding your stencil steady, sponging over those spaces that are blank, and then doing some smaller scales on the inside here, and then down in this bare space here as well. Doing some smaller scales. Make sure your model keeps their eyes closed. Okay. So using a number 3 round brush, I'm gonna load up some Global Strong Black. And now we're gonna create our line work, making kind of a pronounced brow line, coming under the eyebrow, and then arching it up and then down, kind of making a bit of a scowl. And then I'm gonna outline the eye area here. Just using the tip of my brush to get that nice thin line. Keeping that kind of that almond shape for our monster eye, coming under the brow here. Flicking that out, and then closing this up here on the inner corner of the eye, getting a bit of a pointed shape there. Okay, and then outlining kind of another wrinkle down here. I guess you could call these like wrinkles on the inner corner of the eye. And then just outlining lightly with the tip of my brush all the way around our mask, our eye mask like this. Just closing up the entire shape like that. Just lightly with the tip of my brush, outlining this whole thing. Same with the horns, we're gonna outline these as well, making them nice and pointy, following the shape of each horn. And this black just really makes the entire design pop. Outline each one. Okay. Top ones. Using the very tip of my brush, trying to get a nice thin line. And then you can flick in some little like ridge lines coming from the base of each horn, just to give it a slightly more realistic look. Outline. Flick up some little lines up from here. I'm going to make these a little bit more pointed. Makes it a little bit more scary looking. Kind of pointing this out a little bit more, like that. And then the next step, we're going to do some shading. And normally I'd use Star Blends, but I actually have this shadow and a blender brush. And this is just regular black eyeshadow. This is like an Annabelle Ebony black eyeshadow. I'm just going to test this on the back of my hand first. This is like a little fluffy chameleon blending brush. And on the corner of the eye, on the outside corner and the inside corner, I'm gonna shade basically the eye so that it looks like it's 3D. Okay, just in the corner, and then kind of rounding it is gonna make the eye look like it's coming out. Okay, I went a little bit underneath the brow area there as well. I'm gonna go into the inside corner, get right in the inside corner, and then round it out, blending the black to give this eye a 3D look. Okay, under the brow a little bit, under these little brow wrinkles, and then just sort of outlining it lightly as well, giving it a bit of a shadow effect all around our eye mask. Down here, and then kind of also around the horns like that, just creating a shadow, dusting on some of the shading. And then in the temple area and up above here, just making it look like it pops. Finishing that up, we're gonna do the center of the eye next with that same outline brush that we were using with the Global Strong Black, creating kind of a long, skinny triangle shape down the very center of the eye, using the tip of my brush to get nice precise lines, filling it in. And then you want to just let that dry a little before we go on to our next step, which is adding kind of a light reflection, a couple of dots right on the edge of that pupil. And then I'm going to come in and just highlight the horns a little, filling them in with a little bit more bright white, defining them a little bit more. Brighten them up. And then I also decided I want to come in and create some fine lines underneath the eye on both sides, on the inner and outer corner, kind of creating almost like age lines using the very tip of my brush, like that. And that's it for our super cool one eye monster design. I hope you guys really enjoyed this, and thank you so much again for watching.